real question is, what kind of money can I make? And it varies wildly. So for several years, we made 50% profit on that little business I was telling you about. And that would have continued on probably for a few more years until we had to reinvest in the equipment. But even then, the net would have been high, except that at one of our big properties, we weren't super diversified, and we knew this, it was a risk, but we weren't highly diversified. One client gave us 9 properties. That was a nice large chunk of that revenue, and he got his buddy in to get the contract, and we lost it after having it for years. I don't remember how many years, and we ended up losing it. That buddy ultimately lost it within months again, but we lost the contract because the purchasing manager was getting his friend in. And so that hurt, and that just destroyed our net profit. We still had net, but it took away. We no longer had a 50% net margin. Had that event not happened, and we knew that gamble going in. This was all just part of the strategy. We had other businesses. Had that not happened, we would have been able to continue on at 50% net. So I see a lot of little guys that they grow their businesses, they're unprofitable or not very profitable, and one day they get really smart, they chop up their business and they create this really profitable entity. And it floats on really profitable for a while, but they're not doing any marketing, they're not doing any reinvesting in their business, they're not reinvesting in their equipment, they're not doing anything to better the business, and over time those margins never hold. Over time they fade. Then there are other guys that run the same thing. They might have a couple crews, and they're just really, really dense. Their locations, their properties are all extremely packed together, very, very dense, super high profitable. They do just enough marketing to keep bringing in enough enough clients, and they keep that business for years and years, and they run at 20 and 30% profit margins. Many of them at 30% margins. But they've got a smaller business, and that's the lifestyle. They're actively working in the business. It's nothing they can walk away from. It's nothing they can go generally take a vacation for 2 months, but they've created something that pays them very handsomely, has a really high net profit on it. It's a very easy business to run, but it generally is a small business, definitely under $1 million. And so whenever you decide to make the conscious decision, hey, I'm going for a real business, one I can get out from under, one I could really sell, my experience is net margins always suffer because you're doing a lot of reinvesting, you're building overhead, you're building structure, you're building processes and procedures. So there's a trade-off. You're now giving up margin, you're giving up some net to build a real company that could actually be sold for real money, or a real company that could continue on without you, or a real company that you're actively involved in, but you're able to be free enough from it, you can have a pretty cool, exciting life. I will trade some net all day long to have that business. I don't want to have to work in the field. I don't want to have to always be watching my business over my business. I'm willing to give up some net. Now, on this other business, can you have a really good net? Yes. But if you want to be a market dominator, I truly believe that if you want to be like the next True Green, there's no way you're going to run 20 and 30% margins. You're just not going to. Because if you want to grow that fast and you want to be that competitive, you start competing more and more and more on price. And you want the bigger and bigger accounts. And my experience is the very, very big accounts have lower margin. They are fine-tuned accounts. They know exactly what they want in their bid specs. They know exactly what it should cost. They put them out to bid. They have a whole purchasing manager. They have a buying procedure. They really wring all the expense out of that. And they buy from companies that are, workman's comp, full insurance, legal workers. These guys are playing by the rules, and these guys have all the expenses and all the overhead that the little guys don't have, that aren't playing by the same rules. And the big companies that are the multi-$100,000 contracts or the $50,000 contracts, these people know what they're doing. They have property managers that know what they're doing. They're getting very competitive bids. There's less margin in those. There's a real sweet spot, I believe, in the residential, and a real sweet spot in the small commercial. Now, there's things that come with that. There's negatives that come with that, meaning you got to sell a whole lot more residential and a whole lot more small commercial to equal just one big commercial property. But you have the opportunity to get more clients that are buying not on price but on customer service in the smaller market than you do the large commercial. So if you want to go up to that world and you want to get in the huge contracts, you want the huge construction jobs, if you want to do work for builders, your margins are going to be squeezed. There's no way around it. And one of the businesses we were in the janitorial world with big contracts, they were squeezed. They went out to bid, and there were plenty of guys that would compete, and there was no 20 or 30% margin in that business. It didn't exist. If we wanted to be a small player and just clean some small properties, yeah, we could have got some big margins. But when you wanted to move to the big time and you wanted to clean the big stuff that was $100,000+ contracts, it wasn't there. It didn't exist. Those guys have purchasing managers, like I said, that know what they're doing. They know what they're buying. And so margins change. So it really is a number of things. What market are you serving? How big are the clients? What are the techniques they're using to buy? How educated is the buyer? What is their buying criteria? The better they are, the less chance that you're going to win a high net business. If they're big properties managed by property management companies are making a decision based on quality, but they're really making a big decision based on price. Harder to get high net margins in that business. So those are some things to think about. The size of your business, your growth rate, all determines your net. So I personally believe you can build a lawn care business in the 20% net margin. That's my belief. It's in the 20s, and I believe and you can build a real business in the 20s. Low to high 20s. It just depends on what you're doing and how picky you are about your clients and how you job cost your accounts. I believe you can also have plenty of accounts in the 30% net. Just depends. Again, it goes back to what are you doing. Some of our business is really high net, and then we've got some bigger properties. The net drops a little bit, and it's worth it because one property is the equivalent of selling 30 residential properties, one bigger commercial. So we give up a little net to get that in some cases, but that it works for us, and that average together leads me to believe that you can, if you're careful and prudent in the maintenance side, building something in the 20% range. I believe that the 30 is in some cases obtainable. I know of some guys doing that, very, very few. I know of a lot of companies that are running under 10%, but they're selling big work, big landscape jobs, big construction projects. I think you should be doing better than 10%. That part of the market just doesn't interest me, so I stay away from it. So it really comes down to being choosy and picky and job costing and walking away from the less profitable work. It comes down to really understanding your numbers, and then you can make some good margins. There's another thing that I didn't even talk about. When we talk about net margin, are we talking about your salary in or before or after your salary? So net margin before or after what you make. I mean, there's just so many variables when it comes to net. So, but I will say there is a lot of money in the lawn care business, a lot. And there is enough net in this business that there's no point looking at another industry. If you know this industry and you like it, or you're already in it, don't necessarily think the grass is greener on the other side. There's plenty of profit in this business. I believe it. I know it with certainty. And if the segment you're serving is not highly profitable, if there's too much competition, there's plenty of segments. There's irrigation, there's pest control, there's maintenance, there's landscape, there's hardscape. You can specialize. You can get into outdoor playground equipment. You can get into sport courts. You can get into so many different segments as you expand your business, and you can do some real research ahead of time and figure out where's the margin, what fits with my business, where's the margin. You can set a goal and move that direction.